Another important platform to know and understand is Weixin or WeChat. Anyone here use that platform? Okay, so a number of you are using it. One of the interesting things about WeChat is that it enables you to have one-on-one communications. You can decide who can follow you. You can reject people. But it's all about one-on-one communication. But it's something that we found is an interesting marketing tool in China. We use WeChat where we have people on WeChat in databases, and if we're marketing something for one of our clients, we push it through WeChat because it goes directly to them. And one of the clients we do that for is McDonald's. We run a lot of consumer activity for McDonald's, and we're pushing a lot of information through WeChat these days, whereas a year ago, we might have focused more on Weibo because it's going directly to people, they see it, they respond to it. I won't go into the details of this. I think you can get copies of the slides later, but it gives you the difference between Weibo and WeChat. I want to just very quickly touch on how important it is to protect your brand. And so one of the things you might have gathered already today is you're not in Kansas anymore, and you're not in Sydney or anywhere else. China is very different. And the way crises happen in China is important to understand and important to look at how you protect your brand. A number of things that have happened in China or happened during the period that I was there. In 2003, SARS broke out, this deadly disease that was killing people. And the government tried to put a lid on it and keep it quiet. And people in China didn't trust what they were reading in the newspapers. They trusted each other. And what happened was people were then texting messages to each other. This was a little bit earlier than social media platforms had come about, so text messages were going around. The government very quickly clamped down on text messages, right? And introduced laws to say if you're starting rumors through mobile phone technology, you will be sentenced to X number of years in prison. By 2008, in the lead up to the Olympics, when people in Xinjiang and Tibet started protesting to try to attract attention, the government very quickly shut down the internet and mobile phones in those two provinces. They were shut down completely. People, they could not communicate anymore by mobile phone or by social media platforms. By 2011, social media had taken off to the extent that when this train accident happened in the south of China, and you may have all seen news coverage of that, people were online straight away talking about it and demanding the heads of government officials who were responsible. There was a survey done on Weibo which showed that 94% of people responding to that survey were dissatisfied with the way the government had handled the crisis. The government was not able to shut down comment on this on the internet because it had already got out of control by the time they were ready to turn it off, and they decided that wasn't going to work. So for the first time in China's history, the Premier of China got on a plane and went down to the city this incident had happened in, and was there to try to soothe the masses and say the government is interested and will take action. The end result of it was that government officials lost their jobs and were put on trial for corruption and whatever that was involved in that. So very quickly, I'm going to touch on a case study that we worked on. McDonald's is a client of ours. I'm quite impressed that quite often I attend conferences and I see other speakers talking about the McDonald's crisis and how well it was handled. We were the ones who were there that actually handled it. Who knows what 3.15 is in China? Yeah, Consumer Protection Day, the 15th of March, right? Julius Caesar would have said the Ides of March, beware the Ides of March. What happens is every year in China on the 15th of March, it's Consumer Protection Day. The media puts a very big focus on it and looks for companies that have done bad things to consumers to make their lives miserable. Last year, we got information before Consumer Protection Day that CCTV was going to target an international food company. As we worked for McDonald's, alarm bells went off. Could this be us? It was us. CCTV said McDonald's had done something really terrible. McDonald's had sold 2 pieces of chicken 3 days beyond their use-by date. This is in a country where people die from eating poisoned food, and CCTV decided McDonald's had done a terrible thing by selling chicken past the expiry date. We went into action very quickly, and we decided this isn't the type of thing you need to fight just in the traditional media. Putting out a statement or putting a spokesperson on CCTV wasn't enough to do it. We knew we'd have to engage social media. Because of our marketing program, where we had a large following of young people who liked McDonald's. McDonald's in China is the sort of place you take your date to. It's a high-end restaurant in China for a lot of people. So we had a very huge following. So we went out on social media to start to respond to the allegations that were made and the crisis. And what's interesting is we had a lot of the followers then started to retweet things, and without even our prompting, started to tweet about how much they liked McDonald's and why they liked and trusted the brand, to the extent that we ended up with a happy hashtag coming out of it. So we had several happy hashtags which were in favor of McDonald's. So it's very important going into a market like China that you've got to be aware of the risks as well as what you need to do from a marketing perspective. So if I could leave you with just 4 things to remember, it's obviously important that you use locally relevant platforms. It's not just that Facebook and Twitter are blocked in China, it's that they are not socially relevant. A lot of Chinese can get onto Facebook. I have Chinese friends on Facebook, but they don't do that much on Facebook. They're doing things on local platforms that are more relevant to them. You've got to engage with the Chinese consumers. They're the ones who are creating content. You've got to give them the information that they can take to actually develop and create the content that is favorable to your brand. You need to be strategic about it. You need to know who is your market and which platforms do they actually use, and you need to have a presence on those platforms. Saying, I am going to go and be on Sina Weibo because that is the biggest one, it may not be where your market is. You've got to look for who is your market. And then finally, don't be afraid to ask for help. I was always surprised by the number of foreign companies that would come into China. Before I'd gone to China and worked there in this area, I used to work for Austrade, and the number of people, business people, who would go to China and end up calling our office in Beijing or Shanghai and saying, I've been here for a week and I'm having trouble making contents and I can't even read the phone book. Well, you don't want to be in that situation, and especially with social media. So don't be afraid to look for help. So with that, I'm happy to take questions if we still have time. Otherwise, I'll be on the panel a little later.
Yeah, a
few minutes. One down there.
Hi, Alison. Just interested in terms of you mentioned using WeChat to help your clients and McDonald's to further reinforce its marketing. And how would you evaluate the overall utilization of WeChat? Because I think it's actually quite different from Weibo, which is quite much more likely, much more easy to see the change of followers and also the interaction with the audience. WeChat, I think, is still trying to figure out its way. So in terms of the evaluation of the overall performance, is there a way of doing that?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and using it for a company like McDonald's, a lot of it is done to push product or push special deals that are going on, and there is a requirement that you respond. I can't remember whether it's through WeChat or whether it's through Weibo or some other means, but to be able to take advantage of a deal, you need to respond, and so we can measure the number of people who are responding to those things that are being pushed out.
So do you mean that actually if people take that WeChat message to the actual store, there will be some recording machine to be to able to record that data?
Yeah, or it might be that we're telling them there's going to be a special on Sunday, and to get that special, you need to send an email or send something via Weibo or whatever to a certain address to get that information, and then they can interact. And so you know who's taking up the promotional activities that you're doing.
But it's actually done through an offline activity rather than the because I know that Weibo actually have a backstage database. You can monitor the change of followers and also how many people shared your message or how many people made comments. WeChat is still kind of unknown area, I think.
Yeah, I don't think WeChat is as sophisticated as that yet.
Okay. Yep.
But it's about, saying here's a special deal that's going on at stores in Beijing, and here's what you need to do to go in and take advantage of that.
Yeah. So that you mean it's more likely to be used a combination of both online promotion but also offline.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Just a question. Because that social media, because the social media sort of environment in China is so diversified, do you see it sort of bunching together and some platforms going out of relevance and bigger platforms emerging, or do you see it sort of remaining as that conglomerate of all these different niche platforms?
Yeah. I think that's probably the $20 million question, because I think the Chinese social media landscape is evolving very quickly. It's a little bit hard to predict that. Looking at it, you would imagine that there's got to be some sort of a shakeout of it. But if you look at something like Weibo, well, there are two main leaders on Weibo, both Tencent and Sina Weibo. I can't see that one of them is going to completely fall away, given that both of them have, more than critical mass now. They've both got userships of more than 300 million, right? And they're being used in different ways. So people who are on Tencent Weibo might be using it in a different way to the people on Sina Weibo. So it's very hard to say, that there is going to be a complete shakeout or whatever. The thing is that the Chinese market is so large that you can have that diversity.
Okay. And just one question about Facebook. I read an article saying it's recently been allowed in Shanghai as part of the free trade zone development. Do you see that possibly sort of gaining any steam? Like I know in Vietnam, the local sort of platform sort of died away as soon as Facebook became popular.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question. Actually, a few years ago in China, I was asked, was Facebook banned for political reasons, or was it banned to protect the local industry? And my view is it was partly banned to protect the local industry and give that time to develop and to grow and to consolidate its position. I think for Facebook going into China now is going to be quite difficult to gain the same sort of momentum that it has in the West. But as the Danish Nobel Prize winner in physics once said, I never make predictions, especially about the future. So who knows? I think we'll have to watch and see how Facebook adapts in China. But I think it's going to be a hard battle for them.
All right, thank you, Alistair.
Thank you.